Thursday, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. We are talking hockey night in America. My name is Scott Morgan, the Motor City Mad Mouth, fresh from coming back from Tampa. I've done a few shows this week. Mike Santos knows Tampa all too well. Don't you, Mike? So he's back as well. Took last week off. Put a show out in the archive. Put it on there. We're back. Right, Mike? Glad to have you back.
Yeah, great to be back.
And Mike, we're going to call him Mike Whittaker, but for the show, we're going to call him Whit. Okay, what's up, Whit?
Works for me. What's going on, guys?
Us. And last but not least, George Chychrun.
Good evening, guys. Looking forward to some good talk, hockey talk.
All right, well, let's get to it with the new all-time goal-scoring king, Alex Ovechkin, breaks Wayne Gretzky's record the right way. No empty netter, which he could have had the night before. He has 895 goals. What are your thoughts about the new goal-scoring king, Mike?
I'm not surprised that he did it. I'm also not surprised that he did it with a few games left. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. Obviously he's the greatest goal scorer of all time. Yeah. But he's one of these guys that's his game, right? He wants to score goals. You knew even coming into this year with a record in sight, that was what he wanted to do. Right. He wasn't going to let it get to another year. But I think it's really interesting when you compare the two, him and Gretzky, and see that Gretzky's got so many more assists than Ovechkin. And as an offensive player, it really makes you appreciate how good Gretzky was, because he still scored all those goals. But I think he had, what was it, George, does it sound right? 1,200 more assists than Ovechkin. It was certainly.
I know it's significant. Yeah,
it was close to 1,000 anyway. That's a big number. That's a big number for difference when you talk about guys that are scoring the amount of goals that those two guys scored. So I think, number one, it made me appreciate Gretzky more. And, as of right now, Gretzky's only one behind him. So he better score some more.
What are your thoughts about the fact that he chose to do it against the Islanders the right way instead of taking the empty net route that he could have had the day before?
Yeah, I think that, that doesn't surprise me. I think it was certainly good theater.
Right.
But let's go through his career. I haven't looked at this, but how many empty net goals does he have?
Exactly.
Do you want to take those away and then let's see how many he's got? So yeah, it was nice. It was nice that he scored the record breaker with a goaltender in net. Also nice that there was a goaltender in net, so now that goaltender can live in infamy forever too.
That's a good way to look at it. It really is. No, I'm not going to top that one, but let's see what Wood can come up with in response to it.
It certainly was the right way to go. We were actually watching. I had the feed of the Capitals game on my computer. Me and Max Boltman and Sam Stockton were actually all watching the game together at Little Caesars Arena the other night while the Red Wings were playing, just because we knew that Ovechkin was right on the verge of scoring, and he scored on a one-timer to tie Gretzky, and then we all saw that he had the option to go out on the ice late in the game with the goaltender pulled and decided not to, and I think that was the right move. I know that Ovechkin did score either his 300th or 400th career goal into an empty net, but was not going to take the chance to move ahead of Gretzky unless he could score the correct way with a goaltender to the net. And I guess it was all the more fitting that he scored on his countryman Ilya Sorokin with the Islanders the other night, and pretty much just an incredible story that he was able to write. And he is now officially the greatest goal scorer of all time. So,
what about you, George?
Well, I talked to a good friend of mine at the Red Wings game recently, and he still thinks Gretzky was better, and it's because of what you just said, Mike, is that points-wise, he's way ahead of Ovechkin. I'm not here to debate that point. They're both fantastic players. What I like is that Wayne took the time out, obviously, and his wife from their personal schedule to go to the last few games, several games, as Alex was getting closer and closer. And of course, Commissioner Bettman was there as well. Big Apple, big scene. I know it wasn't the Garden. I was happy he did it against the Islanders too. The Big Apple, the big city, not to mention all his adoring fans that got tickets or paid high prices to get them from scalpers. I'm sure there were a lot. The crowd was just fantastic, congratulating him at the Islanders.
Well, let's face reality. Gordie Howe was there for his record breaker as well. So why wouldn't he go ahead and show up for it? And the Big Apple is a Big Apple. Where the Islanders play, they're minutes away. It's not that big of a deal right across the island. What are they? I think they're on Long Island, right? I'm not sure what the boroughs are out there, but
they're actually near Belmont Racetrack now. So
yeah, right. That's where they built that new facility. But Gordie Howe took the high road. Why shouldn't Wayne Gretzky? That's for sure. Hi, Brian Pettit. Glad to have you on. He'll be on later tonight on Fire Up. So as we move on, more power to Alex Ovechkin. We'll see how many more he can pile up. I don't know if he'll make 900 this year, but we'll see what happens. If not, 900 will be a slam dunk when he plays the final year of his contract. I have a couple of interesting Florida Panthers topics. This one really is absolutely funny. And I mean, really absolutely funny. The $54,000 speeding ticket in the summer of 2018. Get this. Alexander Barkov was targeted going 105 kilometers per hour in a 60-kilometer zone and had to pay a fine of 46,675 European dollars. Can you believe that? I mean, I don't know nothing about kilometers, but that's one expensive speeding ticket. I mean, I'm looking at these numbers. I admit I have a lead foot, but really, seriously, really? I mean, this guy, 105. I don't know, Candy. You have to do the metric system on this. But when I think about 105 kilometers and 46,675, I don't even know what that amounts to in American dollars. I need some help. Where's Fred Ebling when I need him? Really? Seriously? Really? What do you think, Mike? That's one expensive speeding ticket.
Yeah. I'm not going to pretend to do the math right now, but he's probably doing like 85 or 90 miles per hour in like a 30 or 35 mile per hour zone.
I'll take it.
I also don't know what the area was like, but if it was in this country at 35 miles per hour, it wouldn't have been on a highway. So it could have been in a residential neighborhood. It could have, for all we know, it could have been in the school zone. I don't know. I really didn't know much about this story. But I tell you what, it does bring to mind to me, and that's the famous Teemu Selanne, who was well known for speeding over in Finland and also in the United States when he came here. He was very fond of auto racing, and got quite a few speeding tickets when he first moved to North America.
Unbelievable. What's your take on this, Whit?
I mean, I can't even imagine having to pay a speeding ticket that hefty, but, then again, I kind of do have, like you mentioned, a lead foot myself, but definitely tone it down in, I guess, sensitive areas like residential areas. And, I don't have kids myself, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews, and I always get kind of nervous, when my sister sends me videos of them playing in the front yard, when if the ball goes into the street or something like that, and there's a speeding car coming. And so, obviously I kind of take it slow myself in residential and other, construction areas and stuff like that. But, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who are just plain reckless like that and, show very little regard for their own safety and the safety of others. So, thankfully a speeding ticket was the worst part of that for him, and instead of something a lot worse happening. So
George, here's my question to you. You're a religious guy. Have you ever gotten a speeding ticket anywhere? I can't imagine George Eichhorn ever getting. I can't imagine George Eichhorn of all people getting this.
Oh yeah.
Really?
I've had him before, not recently, thank God. But I would never do something that stupid. If he was in any kind of hurry, I mean, there's still no excuse. With too much of this stuff going on, too many people being hurt and injured. And I know the police are doing their best, but some of these chases are just ending up in disaster. But No, Scott, that is the biggest fine I have ever heard of. I had a laugh because I remember one time something about a library book somebody didn't return. It was a ridiculous amount of money they owed. But for somebody to get slapped with that that is a real hard lesson, bitter pill to swallow. I mean, he makes a lot of money, but still, maybe it's a good wake-up call for him.
I think it must be a problem for the Finns because I don't know if people realize this, but Barkov actually grew up in Finland. He was born to Russian parents, but he's Finnish. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Solani, now Barkov. There's probably been some others in between that we're forgetting, but it seems to be a problem in Helsinki.
I do my best work on the interstates, and so I am the interstate intimidator, and I don't have a problem talking about it. I'm not going to go into my speeding because I don't want to be out there a marked man. I mean, one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid was Smokey and the Bandit, and usually Smokey always went after the bandit. And I was the bandit when it came being on the roads. I don't care to get into too much information, but I'll say it, and that's it. We'll stay with the Panthers theme again because some of the stuff I pulled up out here, there's interesting stuff. Gustav Forsling had a shot that was clocked at 105.05 miles per hour, which marked the second hardest shot tracked in the NHL edge era since 2021 behind Tage Thompson at 106 miles per hour on 12/31/24. My goodness, if you're a goaltender and you're getting hit with that, Mike, oh Lordy, oh my, as Keith Jackson would say, that's one hard shot.
Yeah, well, you know what? Obviously, the equipment's changed. The sticks are so much more. Well, first of all, they're lighter, but they're what you'd say whippier, and so they get a lot of torque. And you've also got guys like Forsling who are big guys. I mean, the first guy that comes to mind that really changed the dynamics of people shooting the slap shot is Chara. I mean, we always know guys like Al McGinnis had the big boomer from the point and stuff, but I don't think people realized how a guy like at Chara's size could get so much force behind a puck because he didn't look as fluid doing it as maybe a guy like McGinnis. But these big, tall guys, the other thing now too with these big, tall guys is the league has relieved them of the stick size limits, which they used to have too. So they've got bigger, longer sticks now than they used to. So it's only going to lead to harder and harder shots.
What's your take, Wit? I like that name, Wit. You know what you're going to do? You're going to sign on from now on under Wit.
I have no problem with that. I had a couple of variations of that nickname in high school. So no
good.
problem.
Bring it. Now you can bring back the sports exchange. All right, Wit, go ahead. What's your take on it?
But I mean, I grew up playing hockey. I played both forward and goaltender. I would play drop-in hockey at the Ann Arbor Ice Cube, which used to house the U.S. National Development Program, and actually skated against a couple of future pros. Obviously, I was never near good enough to actually realistically play with them, but just drop-in style, and took shots from them. But honestly, kind of like Mike said, the equipment for goaltenders today is that you hardly feel a thing, even if you're taking a shot from, like let's say established NHL players like Chara or Ovechkin or. Stamkos has always been known for his shot. And so, but yeah, the equipment for goaltenders has really come a long way, which is great. Something I would advocate for some of these people who want goalie equipment to shrink even more than it already has. And I mean, let's face it, it needed to shrink from the point where it was 20 years ago before the first lockout that wiped out the whole year. But if people want goaltending equipment to continue to shrink, then why should the players not have to go back to wooden sticks? If it's because, kind of like Mike said, it's a major advantage for the players these days with the sticks that they have these days that really add 5-10 miles an hour on their shot alone. And so it would almost be dangerous for goaltenders to see their equipment reduced from where it is right now. And so I certainly appreciated I used to have the old Steve Yzerman model, the Easton Synergy sticks back in the day, and loved those. And it was kind of right around the advent of the composite sticks, but it definitely does give an advantage to players these days. But then, kind of like you mentioned, players like Al McInnes back in the day using wooden sticks routinely, blasting 100 miles an hour. Some players can just bring it, and some other players, I think, are definitely being aided by the composite style sticks now.
Yeah, I mean that's a really good point by you, Mike, because the NHL had the opportunity to sort of stop this from happening years ago, and we're talking the late '80s when Gretzky was playing, and the first thing that came along was the aluminum stick, and it was the two-piece where you would insert the blade at the bottom of the shaft, which was aluminum. Easton, I think, was really the first one that made it popular, at least at the NHL level. And the NHL could have stepped in at that point and said, okay, what are we going to do about this? Let's really look at where this is going to go in the future. And maybe did what baseball did, right? And said, bats are only made of wood, right? You can do whatever you want with bats at other levels and use aluminum bats or whatever, but in Major League Baseball, you're going to use wood bats. And the NHL had that opportunity, and I think they were a little short-sighted in taking the money that was available at the time from these companies. And one thing led to another, and now the cat's out of the bag, and this is what we have. And if you look back at another good point by me, it was that time that the goalie started figuring out ways to basically stop playing goal and start being blockers, right? And that's when the equipment got bigger. You had some guys like I'm not even going to name names because you know them, but it started coming up with these things where they could, put their arms out like this, and then under their armpits the jersey would extend, and they had little things that would then, when they went to a butterfly, would cover the area between their legs, and it just got really out of hand, right? So I agree with you, Mike. If you're going to let shooters, especially the size of these guys now, and the torque that they could shoot with these sticks, then you better let goalies, have a little advantage too. I mean, I don't think it's ever good for the game to try to legislate more goals in the game or less goals in the game, and that's what we seem to do all the time. We don't just let the game, flow from one era to the next. Things change. You had a very physical, violent game in the late '80s, even in the '90s. We get Jacques Lemaire comes around with the trap in the mid '90s, and various different styles. I mean, let the players and the coaches figure out things and let the game change from time to time. Instead, we panic as soon as there's fewer goals. We're like, we got to do something about this, right? Well, no, just let players play the game. It'll change, and then there'll be too many goals, like there was in the in the Edmonton Calgary years, right, where Brant Fuhr's like an acrobat, and the Oilers are scoring 8 goals every night. So anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying that those are really good points, Mike.
You talk about it. You can be as long-winded as you want. Your insights matter a lot. All right, George Eichhorn.
Well, I don't have much more to add. I mean, it's a fact, like you guys said, that the shots are harder and players have to take more. I mean, I've always admired guys. I go back to the years of Olympia Stadium and the Red Wings, and no helmets they wore. Padding was minimal. Goaltenders didn't even have masks on back in the day. I mean, it's just incredible to think that more players weren't severely injured. I don't like the fact that I guess it's so powerful, but I do like the fact that it's part of hockey. The meaning, the defensemen especially, those guys that take the brunt of some of these shots. The goalie, of course, does too, but a lot of defensemen, as we know, and the act of going down there, blocking and protecting your goaltender, your zone, and taking the brunt of that is just I admire those guys, and I know how painful it is to do that. But yeah, the shots are wickedly fast, and I don't see a point of unless something drastic happens of trying to cut back the speed of their shots.
George, I'm going to give you a soft, really, seriously, really, because you really make a nice point about the defenseman taking the brunt of the punishment on this. And that's the one thing few people even realize. They take a beating back there, but I'm still amazed to me at how hard these shots come in. It always reminds me of baseball in terms of the hitting of the home run and how much stronger these players are because of the heavy lifting and all that. I won't go into a lot of detail on it. I think everybody has done an outstanding job summarizing my point. And I'll leave it to the experts, but George, kudos to you. Defensemen take a beating, and they certainly need to be acknowledged a little bit more, which is why you see a lot of them are injured reserve for a period of time.
They're like trees on a golf course, right?
Aren't they? Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
They're 90% air, but I still hit them right in the middle of the trunk.
So Brian Pettit has an interesting question. Are the pucks different from back then to today? I don't know.
What's that? What was the question?
Pucks.
Are the pucks different from back then to today? I don't even know.
No, there was a period of time actually where they were getting their pucks from Czechoslovakia before the split,
Okay.
the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and they were actually making them from things like melted down radial tires and things, and so there were actually pieces of metal in those pucks, but the weight was the same, the size was the same, but they found that they were having a lot of issues with like glass breaking from these pucks hitting the glass.
Wow.
But no, the puck is, you can go way back to say the 50s and the 40s where it didn't have like the ridges on the side of the puck that they have now. It was smooth, but overall the puck stayed the same size and the same weight.
That's an interesting question. I have one lighthearted topic too, then we'll go to a station break. So if you could bring back one NHL franchise, who would it be? And we got a list here of franchises by logo, Candy. And these are pretty interesting ones, and this will take us back memory lane. Whit, I'll be curious to see exactly how many of these you remember. But Candy, let's put those up there. There we go. Got the Atlanta Thrashers, got the Cleveland Barons, California Golden Seals. It might be before your time, Whit. And then you have the Quebec Nordiques, Kansas City Scouts, and the Hartford Whalers. Keep it up there for a moment. Let these guys look at it, and then we can go from there. Thrashers, Barons, Golden Seals, the Nordiques, Kansas City Scouts, and the Hartford Whalers. All right, everybody. We'll start off with Mr. Eichhorn.
Whoa, that's a tough one, Scott. Are you judging this, Scott? Are you looking for just the design of the logos or overall the team and the city getting a team back?
Excellent question, George. I would say a combination of all three.
Okay.
That's a great question, though.
Well, there's certainly a lot of great.
One team, George. We're not asking you to do two or three like you tend to get away with.
Yeah. I will go with the Quebec Nordique.
Okay.
I know that hockey is so important to the Canadians and French Canadians, and I know that team is sorely missed. I would go with Quebec. I mean, that's my number one choice. I really think that they're a great hockey town, of course, and unfortunately things didn't work out there, and the team moved. But and I know it's a long shot, but anyways, that'll be mine.
No, you got one. That's it. All right.
Yep.
All right, Whit, what do you got?
A lot of those teams were before my time. Obviously, the Red Wings acquired Brendan Shanahan from the Hartford Whalers back in the day.
Right.
But, honestly, I'm gonna go with the Thrashers here, just because I always liked their logo. They were a team that I wanted to see succeed. I know that they had a lot of great players, kind of early on, guys like Danny Heatley and Ilya Kovalchuk. They were just really never able to put it together. They went to the playoffs once and didn't even win a single game. And so I thought it was pretty unfortunate that that things did not work out there. But I think mostly it was because their ownership group just simply didn't really care about them. And so that was a major reason why they had maybe 2 or 3 winning seasons in their entire existence in Atlanta. And so, but I always kind of had a soft spot for their logo. And so I guess I got to go with the Thrashers on this one.
What do you think, Mike?
So I'm going to tell you first who I wouldn't select and why. How about that?
Well, you can do that.
So first of all, I wouldn't select the California Seals, or at one time they were wouldn't own the California Golden Seals.
Right.
And the reason I wouldn't is because, in my opinion, that market has another team, which is
Right.
the Bay Sharks. I know they're not in the same city, but they're
Right.
still in that general Bay area. And for
Right.
people that don't understand, the triangle on that Shark logo actually represents San Jose, Oakland, and San Francisco, which
Okay.
is up the Bay Area. So I believe they have another team.
All right.
The second market I would not select is the Hartford Whalers. Frankly, I just don't think it's a good NHL market, and I think most of their fans are within 2 hours or less of either Boston or New York, and they are, they're just avid fans of either the Bruins or, in particular, the Rangers, but even some the Islanders and the Devils.
Okay.
Select Hartford. I wouldn't select Atlanta only because they've had 2 shots at this thing in the last 50 years. I think it's a terrific market, and I wouldn't necessarily blame the lack of success on their fans. I think the fans would have supported it, but they were just so, especially the last time they had a team for 12 years, they were miserable. And I mean, they just did an awful job. And they didn't change their leadership at the top from start to finish.
Right.
They were just terrible, and they had high draft picks, and they blew it every time. I would not take the Quebec Nordiques, just because, to me, they'd have a tremendous fan base, but they would be limited. They would be much like the Winnipeg Jets.
Right.
They're a small market, and even though I'd love to see the rivalry of Quebec again between the Nordiques and the Canadiens, I wouldn't take the Nordiques because I think their market is just too limiting for what needs to happen with the NHL these days.
Okay.
That leaves me with 2. That leaves me with Cleveland and Kansas City, who I think would both be great markets. I think they both could support the game. I both think that they're big-time cities. But I would not select Cleveland because, number one, I think they've got too much competition in the winter months with the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are embedded in that community. I don't see that competition in Kansas City. They don't have an NBA team. I also think, even though Cleveland would, create a rival for, say, Columbus, I think a rivalry between Kansas City and St. Louis would be really good for the game and really good for that area and that division. So I would take Kansas City Scouts.
Well, you know what? Great minds think alike, Mike, because I had them circled too. I really did. Number one, the logo's pretty good.
You didn't take long to decide, though, did you?
I like that logo. But here, let me add another element. They played in the Kemper Arena back then. That wasn't any good.
Right.
I think it's a no-brainer to put Kansas City. They have an arena with no NBA team, so they get the arena all to themselves, and they'd have preference of dates. I think Kansas City of this group is an absolute no-brainer. And yeah, you already said it, okay? The I-70 rivalry between Kansas City and St. Louis, no-brainer. How did you like it when you saw it in the World Series? How did you like it when you saw it for a limited time in the NFL? But let's go back to the World Series. I'll take Kansas City all day long over any of these. No,
well, guys, I got to say that growing up in Kansas City, Missouri, I actually attended several Kansas City Blades games at Kemper Arena.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before when I moved back to Michigan in 2003, that's when they began talking about construction of what used to be called Sprint Center. Now it's called T-Mobile Center, I believe, but they were very, very close to getting the Pittsburgh Penguins before they selected Sidney Crosby. And so we could have had potentially the Kansas City Penguins, or maybe they would have chosen a different name because that sounds a little silly. But I'm not personally.
And don't forget, guys, that the Red Wings sent Sid Abel to try to start that franchise. One of the all-time great Detroit Red Wings, Mr. Abel, was the general manager.
Yeah, well, with all due respect, interesting stuff, Mike. And I know you went that far back, but that's good to add that insight to it. But I want Mike all the way, period. Kansas City's a no-brainer. They deserve a second chance. And with hockey starting to build in popularity and the automatic rivalry, not only you have with Kansas City, but what about what you have down with the Dallas market as well as throughout the Southwest? And they're centrally located. Let's not forget the fact that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Houston gets back into the league, because they're already adding up the cap pony to ask you that. That'll be for another day. But Kansas City's a no-brainer. I like the logo. They deserve a second chance. And that's a market that doesn't have an NBA team and no winter sports. I did have an opportunity to go to Kansas City Chiefs game before, and Kansas City fans are some of the better ones in the country. Glad we brought that up. Mike, great minds think alike. Can't wait till we hang out over at Bayview Road here and US 1. You know what I'm talking about. All right, Katie, it's time for a station break, and we'll have some more good topics. Good first 30 minutes.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by our host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, and the foreword is written by George Icorn. Talks about Scott's 40-plus years in the industry and how it has changed and evolved. Get your copy today, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. where there is a link to our merchandise store as well as a plethora of great content. Go check it out today. If you want to advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest on a show or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you see that red subscribe button, hit it, like us, share us with all your friends and family. And if you like to listen to the podcast, you can find us wherever you get your podcast. Back to you, Scott.
All right. To answer Brian Pettit's question, if I had to put a state or a city, where would you put a new team? I don't know about you guys, but I would favor Milwaukee, Wisconsin to put a team there. I know it's a good rivalry for both Minnesota and Chicago, and I think it's an untapped market in terms of the NHL. They do have I'm going to get into this as a topic anyways in a future show, but they do have a new agreement with the Nashville Predators as their top team. But I'm just going to answer Brian's question on my own. I would say Milwaukee to answer your question. All right, let's talk about the Wings a little bit. Right now, things aren't looking good in Sunrise. They trail the Panthers 3-1 through 2 periods. We'll see what happens later on. But according to Emily Kaplan, prior to the Red Wings 6-3 loss to Vegas, Detroit's locker room was disappointed that the Wings didn't add at the trade deadline. With that said, is it time for Sebastian Cossa to start playing? Because Alex Lyons will become an unrestricted free agent. And before the last few days, the Red Wings had a 5.9% chance of making the playoffs. I think those went down the drain with their loss to Montreal the other night. And when you put it all into perspective with the Wings, things are just not looking good. And we're going to get into more Red Wings conversation in the next couple of weeks. But let's start there, Mike. I mean, at some point, I wonder, at what point will Steve Yzerman be accountable for the Detroit Red Wings struggles?
Maybe never.
Okay.
I just think he's so beloved in that market. He's so beloved by the Ilitch family. If there's somebody that took over, the moniker, so to speak, from Gordie Howe, and the Ted Lindsays and the Sid Abels and those guys, but really Gordie Howe, right? It's Steve Yzerman.
Right.
And so I think he's going to get every benefit, and I don't think he's a terrible GM. It just hasn't come as easily to him as it did, for instance, during his time in Tampa. Sometimes that just means where you're picking, just the right players aren't there for you, and they just don't come. But I'd be a little disappointed, especially the last couple of years. I mean, I would have expected them to be a real playoff contender last year, and then now again this year. They really, I guess they flirted with wild card spot or one of those wild card spots, but they were never really in it. I mean, overall, when I look at the whole league, I mean, there really are no playoff races going on right now. I mean, I would probably say the only real playoff race, and that could be done on Saturday, is whether Calgary could possibly catch Minnesota. They play each other, and Calgary's got a game in hand. But other than that, I don't even know if there's a real race for a position,
Right.
a playoff position. Never mind to make the playoffs. It's a little disappointing. And Red Wings aren't the only team in that spot, by the way. I mean, Columbus again. Well, they had some tragedy and all that, but still, they were in a position to make a run, and when it counted, they didn't get it done.
Well, my question to you is this: what about Sebastian Cossa? At some point or another, we're going to find out what type of goaltender that he is.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the time to do it, right? Unless for some reason they don't think he's the guy either, and they've got something down, coming down the pike. The other thing that comes into mind now too is, and I think back to what happened with Boston last year. Look at what they did. They went and they had a guy signed, and they had another guy, young guy, free agent, and they went and they traded the guy that was signed, and then Swayman got, in my opinion, way more than he's worth, and then he showed what he was worth this season. So it's a tricky thing, and money comes into it, and it wouldn't be hard for any free agent goalie to go in there now and compare himself to Swayman and get a big deal. So I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to play him, but there's got to be a reason why they're not.
Yeah, I'm mind-boggled. But you know what? I heard of Mike Whitaker. You cover this team on a regular basis. What are your thoughts about the whole Yzerman thing? And then we're talking. I want you also, Whit, to provide some insights on Sebastian Cossa.
Well, I'm in the group of Red Wings fans. I mean, in addition to my work covering the team, at the end of the day, I'm a fan as well. I thought that at this point, this product would be much further along than it is, and it does go without saying that the Red Wings did get some terrible, almost criminally bad luck in the lottery. But at the end of the day, that's not the only way to accumulate talent. I believe that Steve Yzerman is taking an overly cautious approach to his rebuilding process, and naturally that's leading to some impatience. And as far as his free agent signings go, other than bringing aboard Patrick Kane, which has worked out for the most part very well, his free agent signings have been at best underwhelming. As far as his drafting goes, we're seeing kind of the fruits of Marco Kasper. He's stepped into the league and shown that he can play with the big boys here, and I think that he's here to stay now. We don't know how good some of these other prospects are going to be. Michael Branson-Nygaard has not exactly been tearing it up in the the SHL right now. Nate Danielson only has, I believe, last I looked, 11 goals in 60 games at the AHL level. Obviously not very inspiring stuff, and they could step into the league and become great players, but right now I'm really not sure about that. As far as Sebastian Cossa goes, that's something that I and a lot of the people that I work with are a bit confused about, because he's being touted as the heir apparent to be the Red Wings goalie of the future, which makes the acquisition of Peter Mrazek at last month's trade deadline all the more confusing, because he's under contract for next year, as is Cam Talbot. I know that you mentioned that Alex Lyon is not under contract. I don't expect him to be back next season. But especially if the Red Wings end up losing tonight, which I think would officially seal their fate outside of the playoffs, there's really no reason not to bring Sebastian Cossa up for the final 4 or 5 games or whatever it is, and maybe get 1 or 2 starts with literally nothing to lose. He did make an appearance back in December. He backed up for, I think it was 4 or 5 games, and only got into that Buffalo Sabres game that he eventually won after Ville Husso allowed 3 first-period goals. He wasn't going to play that night. And so I remain kind of confused, as a lot of you are, as to why we would not see Sebastian Cossa at least make an appearance for the final couple of games this season.
I mean, I don't follow the Red Wings as close as any of you, obviously, at least not anymore. But I would have to say that since Yzerman's been there, their coaching has been underwhelming.
Very
and,
much. Yes.
and I don't know if that's because Steve Yzerman hit the jackpot when he hired John Cooper, and then brought him up from Syracuse to take over the team. And he's tried to find maybe that same type of guy, not the big, well-known named guy, but, pull somebody from college or somewhere else and try to find the guy that nobody else knows about. But their coaching has been underwhelming. I also don't know how much Steve Yzerman tells his coaches what to do. And so, who's going to play in goal? Maybe he's a hands-off guy, Yzerman, and he just lets the coaches do what they're going to do. I don't know, but it certainly wouldn't help to play Cossa. But I just don't know the dynamics there. I just know that from afar, their coaching has not been what I think it should be. You either got to get a guy that's going to develop these young players when you bring them in, and you stick with them, and you have a plan, or you get a veteran guy and you fill in with some free agent signings and things like that to make yourself competitive right away. But they haven't done it.
All right, George.
Well, Alex Lyon will not be back next year. So, I mean, I think the Mrazek acquisition was interesting, but it gives Stevie a little extra insurance next year. I have no idea what's going on with Cossa. I do not follow the Grand Rapids Griffins, and I rely on people like Mike Whitaker and Helena St. James and Teddy Colfin, to name a few, to tell me how long he's progressing, and he just has not made enough progress. Is what I'm hearing. I do agree that things are going too slow. This is not Detroit Red Wings hockey, the last 8 or 9 seasons. I mean, you got to go back to the years with darkness with Ned Harkness. This kind of streak is not acceptable and should never be acceptable in Hockey Town. All the championships that were won, all the banners that were hung, this is not acceptable. And I'm sorry, Stevie's got to be held accountable. I know what you're saying, Mike. He's the superstar. He's the guy that did it for Detroit. It would be very difficult. I don't think they'll do anything. I don't think they're going to get rid of Stevie Y. But this team needs a shakeup again. I thought Todd McClellan was the answer. He might still be. But that optimism that he brought when that team was winning so well, 7-game winning streak and whatever, all gone. And the tide turned when Stevie and Lucas Raymond got back from 4 Nations. They were not the same team. I don't know if Larkin that's another day, another story. But anyways, that's when the badness started. I'll leave it at that.
Well, not only that, you have to factor the Vladimir Tarasenko hasn't formed his capabilities.
Yeah.
He's underachieved. That contract isn't looking good early on. Who knows what that'll be like next year. So I don't know, at some point or another, when you're the Red Wings and you're not getting into playoffs 9 years in a row, and the Pistons went from the worst team in the league last year to now making the playoffs in your own building, that's not helping matters any either. That's for another day, another time. But the Red Wings have a lot of work to do, and they'll have a lot more time to think about it. A couple more things I want to address tonight. For the first time in program history, the Western Michigan Broncos are in the Frozen Four. Now, I know Mike likes to talk about college hockey. I'm bringing it on. I believe they're playing the University of Denver tonight. I don't have a score, and I don't really care, Mike, what the score is. What are your thoughts about the University of Western Michigan Broncos making it to the Frozen Four?
Absolutely fabulous. I mean, that program has just been an afterthought, not only in Michigan, but around the country for years. And the turning point, in my opinion, was when they brought Andy Murray in there, and he made them legitimate. He's a great teacher, you know, and I think that he really made them legitimate, and kids started to recognize that this was a great place to play hockey. And now, at least as I understand it, they've got a new facility coming, which is going to be terrific. I think Kalamazoo is a good hockey town.
Right.
Besides the campus support they get, and I don't think a lot of people who haven't been there don't understand that. That's a big time athletic program. I mean, they obviously they're in the shadow of the Michigans and the Michigan States and even others in different sports in the state, but that's a good football program there, right? It's a good athletic program, and I think when they brought Andy Murray in, they finally took a turn in the right direction. And now, the support will keep building, and who knows? Maybe they can pull it off. I hope they beat Denver. I'm tired of Denver padding the national championship total. So,
well, I can give you an update, gentlemen, if Scott will let me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Final score: Western Michigan 3, Denver 2, and 2 overtimes. Look at that!
Wow, go Broncos, right?
Oh yeah, go Broncos. Finals. Yeah, keep in mind too that I used to drive on I-94 and see Kalamazoo Wings Stadium all the time, and you know that they're a big minor league affiliate. I don't know if they were ever affiliated with the Detroit Red Wings, but I do know the Kalamazoo Wings. So I'm good for Western Michigan for pulling it off, George.
Yeah.
So that's your thought on so while you're talking about it, what are your thoughts about Western Michigan winning their first game in the Frozen Four?
I think it's great. I think it's a big boost to the city, and like you said, Mike, to that part of the state. They're always playing second fiddle, like you mentioned, to Michigan State, Michigan Tech, Lake Superior State. I mean, Michigan's been blessed as a state with some outstanding college programs, but never have I ever heard about the Western Michigan program being head and shoulders above the teams that I mentioned, at least the last couple of years.
What?
I got to be honest. College hockey has never really been my forte, but I'll just say the politically correct thing here and say that it's cool to see a college team from Michigan enjoy the success. But I guess one tidbit is that I noticed I know that the event is taking place in St. Louis, and they actually paint the logos of both teams on the ice. And somebody noticed that they initially put an Western Michigan logo that's no longer used, and they actually had to change it to the more updated logo.
Yeah,
and
I heard that. I heard that.
Not the worst thing in the world, but kind of a humorous thing to look back on.
Yeah, let that be the worst part of Western Michigan. They're one way away from winning this whole thing, and a lot of great teams have done it. Great points. The only thing I'll say is I'm happy for Western Michigan. It's a great story at a time. Let's not kid ourselves. The NCAA men's Final Four, you didn't have any Cinderella stories in this. Hockey, other than like what Mike said, Denver, you never know what you're really going to get into. So we'll move on to one more topic, Mike Santos update, and Fire Up comes on after we get done here with the Sports Exchange. Final topic, after signing his 8-year, $72 million contract extension with the Washington Capitals, Jakob Chychrun revealed that he replaced his Tesla with a G-Wagon because he had a weird feeling about sitting on the battery all day, so he ends up getting a new vehicle, a G-Wagon for his Tesla. What do you think about these Teslas? They get in the news for all the wrong reasons, Mike. And Jakob Chychrun jumped off the bandwagon.
I think Jakob Chychrun, with his new $8 million a year contract, can afford both. So I don't think he should be worried about sitting in any car. I think he can afford as many cars as he wants. He's a heck of a defenseman, and good for him. And he's been a nice fit in Washington too. Not only on the ice, but in the locker room. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a Tesla guy myself, but he can drive any car he wants right now. And he's newly married too. So maybe the wife's driving the Tesla.
There you go. What do you think, Whit?
Obviously, yeah, kind of like you said, Tesla's in the news for all the wrong reasons today. But I mean, you know, opinions are one thing, but you know, it's never okay to vandalize or damage somebody else's property just because you disagree with them. And so, let's hope that nothing like that happens to him. But speaking of Chychrun, he was a player that I would have loved the Red Wings to take a look at during the summer, but obviously that's unfortunately no longer an option. And so the blue line is definitely an area that the Red Wings need to focus on this summer. I feel that Chychrun could have been a great piece of it, but now obviously they're going to have to look elsewhere for it.
Okay, George.
A great comment, both of you guys. You know, he can buy whatever he wants, but right now, you know, 72 games this year, he's played exceptional. 20 goals, 27 assists as a defenseman, 41 points. And then last year with Ottawa, he had 41 points too in the regular season. But this year he's going to have the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. I think he is a solid guy, and it doesn't surprise me, Scott, because I know a lot of the guys, that's one of the first things that a lot of them rush out and do is get themselves a nice fancy car. All the more power to him. But yeah, he's got a nice career going for himself, and I'm sure the Capitals and Alex and company are every bit pleased for that happening.
Yeah, I'm not a big Tesla guy either, like my buddy Mike Santos. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a big electric vehicle one. No, thank you. I'm too old to deal with electricity issues on the road. I've only driven over 4 million miles on all these interstates anyway. Still feel I have a few miles left. I just need to have a co-pilot with me to do the rest. But no, thank you, people. I actually leased a Honda Odyssey, which I call my condo on wheels. Have a couple little mattresses in it. Very nice, my condo. And I call it the Bull Cruiser, baby. That's it, the Bull Cruiser, Honda Bull Cruiser. Tesla, it's okay. I'm happy with what I'm driving. And if he wants to get Tesla, sell it, whatever, that's his business. But why not throw it out there anyways? The guy got a lot of cabbage to throw around. And if he wants to get rid of it, something else, more power to it. I've always been a firm believer the vehicle is designed to do one major thing, gets it from point A to point B. It just depends on whatever style fits your needs, and that's the end of that. But the one thing that isn't it, go ahead.
One last note on Chychrun. He's a Florida-born and developed hockey player. His father, Jeff Chychrun, was playing for the Panthers at the time when he was born, and he grew up in Florida and played all of his youth hockey in Florida before going on to the OHL. So he's maybe the best Florida-born player so far to play in the NHL.
All right, well, that's it. We're going to transition over to a Mike Santos update presented by Hockey Operations LLC. Take it away, Mike. This show is sponsored by. Go ahead, Mike.
Lots of good things. We are in the process of filming our pilot for Sports Jobs, which we hope will be on the air. Probably this time next year. As soon as somebody picks us up, I can tell you exciting news, especially for you Michiganders. Is that what they call you folks? That we have signed Desmond Howard as the host of the show. So that would be
awesome.
That'll be good. Boston Tea Company is getting ready for an expansion into other markets. So if anybody's interested in T-shirts from historical establishments right now in and around Boston, but Detroit coming soon, go to bostonteacompany.com. And of course, Team 33. We're hoping to have exciting news this summer where we'll be launching the Team 33 app that everybody will be able to get on their phone and play general manager, play NHL general manager with Team 33. So that's what's going on with hockey operations these days.
Always look forward to your updates. A couple of rest in pieces are out there. Greg Millen passed away, and Ray Shero the last couple of days. Hate to see those guys go. Unfortunately for Ray Shero, he dies at 62. His father, Fred Shero, died at 65. It's just when I was looking it up. They've meant a lot to the game of hockey for sure. So rest in peace, Greg Millen and Ray Shero. Great show tonight by this group here. Wit gets better with every show. Icorn, you better be good after all the time we've been working together, or there's something really wrong. And Mike Santos simply knows his stuff. Candy Ebling, they'll give us one final station break after George Icorn gives us his information about how they can reach you.
Yeah, you can follow me as a columnist on the South Florida Tribune, one of the contributing writers there, and covering sports in the Motor City for a paper called Downtown Detroit Monitor. You can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can see me on LinkedIn under my name and on Facebook as well. I'm on there a lot. And follow me on X at SandGSports99. Oh, yeah, at the end of my column, there's a little, thank you, Candy, there's a little link that'll take you to right to Amazon if you want to buy a copy of my book, Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And Mike, I don't know if you noticed this, but the Red Wing logo is worn by a guy named Winger, who they ended up getting rid of after only 1 or 2 years as a team mascot. He's being talked to right there by Gordie Howe and Bud Lynch. I love that picture.
Wow, that's cool.
But the Winger, rest in peace, he's gone. Thank you.
All right, Mike Whitaker, you're up next.
As said before, the Twitter handle is going to be at MWHITAKER_89. You can follow my work for the Downtown Detroit Monitor. Same, I believe it's the exact same information as what George just mentioned. And then email address is mwhitak2@emish.edu. And I will be pumping out some more content this week, especially after Monday, which is now almost guaranteed to be the final home game of the season for the Red Wings. And hopefully at this point next year, we'll be talking about some playoff hockey.
And of course, he's a contributor for the South Florida Tribune as well, Detroit Monitor, South Florida Tribune, etc. All right, Mike, say it again. Whoever else is left that you didn't say initially.
No, just if anybody wants to get a hold of me, the best way is Santos, plural with an S, at hockeyoperations.org.
Okay, Candy, close it out. And also give everybody a preview as to what you can look forward to and fire up following Sports Exchange.
South Florida Tribune Publishing Company published a book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by your host, Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. And the foreword is written by another panelist, George Icorn. Great stuff, guys. Go get your copy today. It talks about how the media industry has changed over the last 40 plus years. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Google, and Apple Books. There's also a link on our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where there's a bunch of other writers. There's a bunch of pictures. Go check out the website. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you see the red subscribe button in that lower right-hand corner, that means you have not yet subscribed to us. Please do so. We have some awesome content on there. We have stuff from the Women's Final Four. Scott's done a bunch of one-on-one interviews. Go check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. Monday nights, we talk baseball. Tuesday nights, we talk football. Wednesday nights and Thursday nights on Fire Up, you never know what we're going to be talking about. And then, of course, we talk hockey on this edition of the Sports Exchange on Thursday nights. Tonight, coming up on Fire Up, we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about college basketball, the transfer portal. We're also going to be talking about the newest Ken doll that is out. And if you guys haven't heard, it's LeBron James. So you'll have to tune in to find out more information. Back to you. Oh, if you want to advertise, call Scott 954-304-4941. And if you want to be a guest or have topic ideas, you can always email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Back to you, Scott.
Well, great job by my group. Hopefully you can join Candy's Country Club after the show. But meanwhile, on behalf of George Icorn, Mike Whitaker, Mike Santos, and Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange Hockey Night in America. And we look forward to seeing you next Thursday night at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, God willing. And tell you what, been a good show. We had to catch up on a lot of things, and we were able to do it in a timely way. Good night, everybody, and Fire Up is next on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And kudos.